Okay, let's get familiar with follow-up paths. Probably one of the more powerful features of the system is our follow-up path tool. What this allows you to do is set up a group of things or a list of things that would be triggered upon the performance of a particular task or action by a contact or a person that engages with your church. And so I'm going to walk through how you set up a basic follow-up path. This particular feature uses a lot of other features in the system, so I won't necessarily go into form creation, email creation, group creation, and all these other things that are kind of connected to this capability. But just know that we do have some videos that deal with those things, and they'll be covered in more depth in those. But for this purpose, I want to just talk about specifically how the follow-up path system works. And so I've gone over to planning, which is our calendar icon. I've chose people planning, and I've gone to follow-up paths. And now that I'm here, I have a few paths that were created at this site. The one that we're going to be focusing on today is this connection card communication path. So what this means is that we have a communication card. It's a form in the system. And upon completing that form, we want a number of things to happen to ensure that this person is followed up with as needed. And so now that this path has been, I've already actually created it, I'll go over just what pieces are here and how you're going to use these pieces and add more pieces to a path once you get it going. Well, the first thing to point out is that this path has a name associated with it. It is active, and so if I click on this pause follow-up path button, that means it's deactivated. When you deactivate a path, if the trigger, in this case completing a form, is kicked off or someone completes that form, the path obviously won't execute for that contact. And so by activating it, it forces or at least enables the triggering of these activities once that form is completed. And so first off, the path is active. And also, I've created a trigger. If there was no trigger selected here, you'll see a message here saying that path will not process without a trigger being defined. And so triggers are required for paths to execute in as much as changing the status to active is required in order for it to execute. So 2 key points: make sure you activate the path and make sure that you select a trigger. Now, the triggers are multiple. There's different types of things you can do to trigger a particular path. You can have someone achieve a life event. So say a person gets baptized, you can have a path that fires as a result of that. You can have a custom attribute get applied to a person and the path gets triggered. A birthday could occur and you can have a bunch of things happen as a result of that. Someone can check into an event. They can register for an event. They can be assigned to a particular group. They can complete a form. This is probably the most common one, but complete a form. Volunteer for something. So say someone volunteers to do something from the volunteer module. This would trigger this particular path to execute. And then the last one we have is an actual URL webhook, meaning that if someone, if you have another system that you would like to have trigger off one of your group life paths, you can do that by providing this API path to that particular application with the appropriate parameters. So, but in this case, we're going to have it complete a form, have a person complete a form, and upon doing so, this will trigger off the particular path. And so I have the execution being a sample registration form because I've chose to complete a form as the path trigger, and I've chosen my form from my collection of forms. And I'll show you briefly what that form looks like in a moment. But again, once a person completes the form, then these are the things that are going to happen. First, a follow-up is going to be created. And this follow-up, if I go to edit the path step, what we find here is that it's going to be automatically assigned. I can also choose to manually assign it, but we're going to stick with the auto assign for the group leaders. And this is asking us what group leaders should have this particular follow-up assigned to. I'm going to choose this FBM bod test, and then I'll define the frequency of the particular follow-ups And lastly, I would indicate the reason. And in this case, I'm just adding in the visitor follow-up auto workflow. I can choose to delay the creation of these follow-ups, but in most cases, you wouldn't do that for at least for the follow-up item. You might do that for an email or an SMS, but for follow-ups, you generally just want to have it trigger off immediately. So what will happen is, with this particular one, when the person completes the form, the first thing that happens will be that a leader is going to be found from this group, and the follow-up is going to be assigned to the next leader that has the fewest assignments given to them. And it's important to remember that the leaders that will be given the assignments are the people that belong to the group that are in the leaders tab. And so I've jumped over to the group manager, and here's the FBM bot test group, and these are the leaders in that group. And so you'll want to make sure that you add your folks not just as users but leaders in order for these particular follow-ups to be assigned to them. And so once I've done that, I also have the option to send an email. And so there's an email template that was created. So if I go back to the email module, here's the email template. This is from the under communications, emails. And then this is the email that I'm selecting here, hello from First Baptist. And if I go to edit this, notice that there's no recipients. This is really just a template that I'm going to use for the system. And from here, again, I won't go into the details of how to set up an email, but you can kind of see I got a placeholder for the contact first name and some details about them visiting the church. All right, so an email is going to go out to them. I specify the subject, and I'm going to CC myself on this email just so that I know it went out. And then another thing that will happen with this one is after an hour, they'll be asked to submit a church visit experience survey. And then also immediately upon submitting that particular form, they're going to get an SMS message saying, hi, whatever the person's name is, thanks for visiting with us. We hope to see you again soon, or see you again. So this is the flow. These are the things that will happen as a result of a person filling out the form. And so I'll show you just briefly how that form looks. Let's go here, the browser, get it dialed into this box here. There we go. Let's go take a look at here's the form. This one's called, we're going to fill out the sample registration form. So let's go down to the sample registration form, which is down here. I'm going to grab the link for it so I can fill it out. Click the share button. And all right, so now I'm going to submit this form. And then it's an email address that I have here just for testing purposes. And then put a phone number in here. All right, and this is just a form. It's nothing special. Of course, your form can have anything you want in it. All right, so the form's completed. So once the form gets completed, I'm going to jump back over to the follow-up path. So the first thing to notice is before I had 4 executions of this path. If I refresh this page, we're going to have 5 executions, and that was the one from this person, John Test. There they are. And notice that it says here that there are no steps created. What that is really telling us is that the system has not begun to process this particular execution yet. So if I refresh, because actually just a moment ago, I got a text message that was sent to me. So that means it did actually execute. So go back to path executions 5. So now here's John Test. We see that 4 of the things that were in the queue happened, and I can view status. A sign for follow-up was successful. The email was sent out. The request form, request for form was processed. Of course, that's delayed. And then the send SMS was done, scheduled for delivery. And so now I have this done. If I go into the record for John and I go to the follow-up, you'll see here that now the leader, Eugene Williams, which was the only leader in that particular group, was assigned this follow-up, weekly meetings. I can click on that, and then I can see the items here, the information that was requested from follow-up. Also, I can show you, I think the text message would have come in here as well. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so those are the messages that, here are the messages that came over. So this is, I took a screenshot of my phone so you can kind of see what's going on there. So here's the message that came to John. So it says, hey, hi John, thanks for visiting us. We hope to see you again soon. And then here's a message that went to me as the leader, telling me that a new follow-up has been assigned to you. Now note that I have a secondary number on my phone for testing. So what I did here was, this is my secondary phone number that I put in the form. And then here's my main number that's associated with my account in the system. So you see it said, please log in to view this thing that's been assigned to you. So I actually go in here and, if I was a leader, I could click that link. I'm gonna kind of mimic clicking the link. So it's U5URSH6. Okay, click that. Imagine I just clicked that on my phone. Okay, I've logged in, and upon logging in, clicking that link, after I click the link, there's the follow-up, and there we are. This is the one that was assigned to me. I can go and look at it. I can go and start putting notes in it. Of course, this is not a video about how to use the follow-up tool, but just suffice to say that this is where you can start adding your notes if you receive that message, and that's pretty much it. And so hopefully that makes sense. I will just kind of jump back over into the site here again, just doing a quick overview. We have the follow-up path tool, and this particular path does generally creates a follow-up, sends an email, asks the person to fill out a form. You can also request forms by sending out an email with the link in the form as well. This is we may eventually get rid of this one because it's kind of redundant to this function. But you can also send out an SMS. This is how you create follow-up paths. Hopefully that was helpful. God bless you. Keep using church software by Group Life. We thank you.